Usually I don't do this, but let me do a short introduction. I'm a gamer and Hunt Showdown is my favorite game ever since I started playing it. The gunplay is amazing, the audio design is unmatched, and the overall theme of the game is just perfect. An extraction shooter solely based on the PvP aspect, a match made in gaming heaven. I've been playing this game since the end of February 2018 and never stopped. I got second place in the last 2 Bayou Bowls, I'm a content creator and I'm getting close to 13,000 hours in Hunt Showdown. I also am a Crytek partner since summer last year. I'm overall considered a fairly good player by the community, and in this video I would like to share my thoughts on what changes could be done to Hunt Showdown to make this game even better than it is already. This will be an opinion piece video about how Hunt Showdown has lost its identity and how to potentially solve it. I personally would love to hear everyone's opinion on this topic and maybe we can have a discussion about it as a community. Before we jump into this video, I want to say that you do not have to agree with anything I'm saying and you're more than welcome to disagree and criticize all my opinions. I actually welcome having an open discussion about this topic, since I think this is a talk the community as a whole should have. From my point of view, the game is slowly recovering from the poor relaunch in August. But at the same time, we are facing the issue for a long time that of the 2 words in the game's title, the hunt aka stealthy approach has overtaken the showdown by a mile. And the game is slowly losing its identity. Not due to skins, not due to the crossovers, not because of the shredder or event trains, but because of a very anti-objective playstyle meta. Especially in the higher ELOs, 5 and 6 star ELO brackets, a lot of players have found very cheesy strategies to increase their odds of winning or to make sure they're not dying while taking 0 risk. This is not a problem all around, but for the last few months people have stopped caring about the actual boss target. Or at least, to me it seems like it. And to be honest, it is normal. Like in every other game that has been out for a while, a meta does develop, which the developers would have never seen coming when they came up with the idea for the title. I will talk about the main objective, the bosses feeling worse at that time, passive playstyles like extract camping, countering reactionary playstyles and cheesy strats in general. I want to say that I personally believe that every playstyle in this game should be viable, even if I personally gravitate towards the showdown part of Hunt Showdown. But the hunting is part of the brand as well, and at the end of the day, nobody owes you a playstyle. Before we deep dive into all of those topics, I want to explain the basic game loop of the game. Hunt Showdown is a PvP VE extraction shooter. You spawn to the map, find clues which lead you to the boss target, fight AI along the way, you make your way towards the boss compound, try to banish the boss, and extract with the bounty token, and fight other players in between to achieve the goal of extracting with the bounty, which rewards you with money to buy more equipment and trade points for your hunter, once done successfully. There are a lot of strategies to achieve the goal of leaving the match with the bounty token, but at the end of the day, that should be every player's goal. I'm gonna say something controversial here, but hear me out. Event cash registers are bottlenecking the game loop from happening. I know a lot of people love getting extra money, but it's actively hurting the game. Sadly, especially with the recent addition of event cash registers, the vulture trade change, and now added fortune machine, especially in the money department, you can make easily double to triple the amount of money by not playing the objective at all and focusing on PvP or even just farming event points. Obviously a lot of players have realized this, and those epic matches in which the entire server meets up and has one of the most memorable shootouts for the bounty have become a rare occasion. Even though those are the matches everybody does remember, players seem to actively avoid them if possible, since especially during the recent events it is very profitable to just survive and do a cashy run instead of chasing or contesting the bounty while not having the advantage. This often ends up with banishments happening with not a single enemy being in range of the actual banishment upon token pickup. I do not think we should punish people for so-called sandboxing, aka playing the game the way they want to, but I think we need to make going for the bounty feeling worth it again. That means more money, but also maybe some kind of reward which you can not get without extracting with the bounty token. We could even talk about losing half your money and experience gained during the match as a fee for leaving without the token, since you choose to not fully participate in the game loop, but I think the lack of making money provided is only half of the issue, and punishments might not be needed after all, which will be a discussion for a different video. I have another idea to make the bounty feel worth going for again. My idea is based on the current pledge system. Everybody who plays the game is familiar with it, but let me explain it real quick. Your hunter gains pledge marks for performing certain tasks in the game. Looting enemy hunters, killing certain AI, farming event points, and extracting with the bounty token. Just to name a few. Those pledge marks are directly linked to your hunter like trade points. You cannot transfer them to your account or a different hunter. Once you lost the hunter or spent your pledge marks, they're gone. Currently, you can spend those pledge marks on event mechanics, but if we change the system in a way that suddenly on top of trade points your hunter also gets boss pledges or bounty coins to spend on burn or scarce trades, suddenly going for the bounty does feel much more rewarding. The only way to get a bounty coin would be extracting with a bounty token or winning a soul survivor match. The trades obviously would have to be balanced in price. For example, you shouldn't be able to buy Death Sheet after a quick hit and run on a double boss bounty. But maybe if your team extracts with all 4 tokens, 4 coins for you and your team, you can exchange them for 1 stack of Death Sheet. This would also be a very high motivation for people to run the gauntlet again, which has become a very rare occasion nowadays, since the risk to reward ratio often simply doesn't make it feel worth it, and you would rather leave with 1 bounty on a double boss bounty map, since crossing the entire map, while everybody knows your location, is basically just asking for unnecessary trouble. Obviously, we could also talk about solo players maybe getting double the coins for an extract, since they cannot carry both tokens, just to keep things fair. It would also make burn and scarce trades feel much more like a vital part of the game, and not just a pure luck-based event outside of the actual events happening. And loadouts and strategies could be built around having those traits. I think the system by itself would solve a lot of issues the game is currently facing and gives the game a high risk, high reward feeling again. Obviously, it will also motivate players to simply head towards an extract as fast as they can, but at the end of the day, that is the entire goal of Hunt Showdown. And it is on everybody else to stop the bounty from leaving the match, which could mean not committing to a long spawn fight, or pushing gunshots on the other side of the map if you're interested in getting bounty coins as a reward for your hunter. While at the same time, giving every player on the map the chance to play the game however they personally feel like, and simply rewarding players who are choosing to play the objective, which at least from my point of view would be very healthy for the overall state of the game. Suddenly, getting the bounty means more than just some hunt dollars and has become a vital part of the game again, since it does give you access to the rare burn and scarce trades, which then will give you an advantage in the future matches. The next topic, which is directly linked to this and I want to talk about, is extract camping. I do not have anything against setting up an ambush, but personally I do believe it is way too easy to do in Hunt Showdown by simply reading the map. Also I think it is worth mentioning there's a big difference between setting up an ambush and predicting where your enemy is going due to audio cues like crows or horses, and simply looking on the map where the extract is. One requires a lot of skill and a little bit of gambling, the other just requires you to be able to read a map. At the moment, every player, when they spawn into the match, can instantly see where all extractions are, and especially once people have become more familiar with the game, players start positioning themselves to block the bounty team from extracting. This does include purposely approaching a banishment from a certain angle, and goes all the way to not pushing the bounty at all, due to knowing the bounty carriers have to run into the open territory, and setting up an ambush will increase the odds of winning while not risking anything at all. Especially the second part of my previous sentence can be very demotivating for the team that played the objective, and eventually has led to a situation that a lot of players might choose to not try to kill the boss anymore when there's no extraction nearby, since suddenly playing the objective feels more punishing than anything else. Everybody on the map can track your current location with a lightning symbol on the map, or simply use Darksight, which turns you into the prey. Which is not a bad mechanic, but kinda sucks when everybody knows the destination of your journey and doesn't actually hunt you down, and more or less just waits for you to come towards them. This has caused a meta in which a fair amount of people would rather not take the extra risk of banishing a boss target unless it strategically makes sense to do so, and rather let someone else do it. Not everybody plays that way, but especially in higher elo, there's always that one team which rather waits than do anything. Here I have a quick example what I mean by extract camping or people positioning themselves in a way that they only block the extract while taking zero risk, aka participating in the game loop and contesting the bounty. Here you see Wombus, Frankie and I have banished the boss, we are waiting for the banishment, nobody has pushed us, nobody is pushing us. I pick up scan, do his 360-degree scan, nobody is inside, I speed things up here a little bit, make our way to the extraction, and once we get a little bit closer, suddenly there are 3 players in scan. Even though we do end up winning here, you can see how this behavior is pretty annoying to deal with, especially if we would have ended up losing here. I think the average player would ask himself, why did I even do the boss if somebody's gonna extract camp me anyways? And the more people start playing the way our enemies did here, the less fun the game becomes. To a completely exaggerated conclusion here, it will come to a point where nobody does the boss anymore. And like you can see here, our enemies did not just show up there randomly, they chose to wait there for us because it made sense, because they knew where we had to go, even had the time to strategically place traps on the extract in case we tried to sneak past them. They were simply just waiting. And in my opinion, if everybody plays that way, the game will eventually die. And again, I'm not blaming the players here because it is a very smart decision. Sadly in Hunt Showdown, playing smart and playing incredibly annoying usually goes hand in hand, and in my opinion it is on the development team to change that. I want to say at this point that I do not have an issue with extract camping by itself, since it is part of the sandbox environment, but I do have a problem with how easy it is to do in the game's current state. Like you can see in this example here, the boss target is positioned in minus folly, and all extracts are far west and north on the map. In such a scenario, a lot of players automatically would position themselves somewhere around the middle of the map, La Plata or Split River, and force a bounty outside the lair to set up an ambush, and the higher we go in elo, the more likely it is for that scenario to actually happen. Or at the very least, a lot of players will make the active decision to stay out of scan range to get the element of surprise on their side. This will either end up with a very frustrated team who banished the boss, or with everybody waiting for someone else to do the boss for them. In my opinion, there are 2 solutions to this problem. The first one is not my favorite, but pretty simple. We had a force extraction point and designed the game in a way that every cardinal direction, aka north, east, south and west, has an extraction point to drastically reduce the odds of an easy ambush point happening. This could get modified with not letting extractions spawn within a certain range of each other, and suddenly extract camping would be much more of a risky strategy and kind of a gamble than simply playing the odds in your favor. The second solution to the problem, which I prefer, is that everybody in the game can only see one of the 3 available extraction points. Let's call it a global extraction point. Or the other 2 extraction points behave like a supply point in Soul Survivor. Nobody can see them unless you discover them, and will only be marked on the map by walking within a certain range of them. Once you or your teammates picked up a bounty token, all extracts will be revealed to you and your team, and you can strategically decide where to go. This has the benefit that it will highly motivate players to push towards the banishment no matter what, since they do not know if the bounty has close extractions available until they check themselves. Which would mean that extract camping ambushing suddenly includes a risk, since you will have to do some scouting before planning your ambush, and you can no longer simply open your map and decide if it's worth contesting the bounty, or if it's being safer to stay back and wait. Especially in combination with the previous mentioned burn trade bounty token system, I think a lot of people would actually push the bounty, and we would go back to the good old server fights. With this change, the hunting part of Hunt Showdown suddenly requires an equal amount of skill to the showdown part of the game, and setting up ambushes on the way to the extract could develop into a skill and potentially no longer be a cheesy strategy. This would be another big step towards making people participate in the game loop while also still allowing a sandbox environment with a lot of different strategies to win the game. The next point I want to talk about is how Hunt Showdown shines with its audio. And I'm disappointed every single time I play any kind of FPS game out there, since Hunt's design is simply superior and we are spoiled by it. But at the same time, there are certain features in the game which do not provide audio cues. And in my opinion, that is an issue. Since in a game where everything is based around audio cues, listening where your enemy is, everything should be making noise, and you should not be feeling betrayed because somebody sits in a corner without you knowing about it. The first one being spinning around yourself while standing still, and the second one being moving through foliage barely makes any noise in most cases. There are exceptions to that rule, but in most scenarios when you go through a bush, through tall grass, or walk through a tree, you will not make any noise. This is one of the main reasons why a lot of players love hiding inside bushes or tree lines, since they do not make much noise while making themselves much harder to spot. Another game, Escape from Tarkov, in the extraction shooter genre, solves this by adding movement noises when turning and all foliage making noise when being moved through or inside of it, to prevent players from camping inside of it, or at the very least commit to not moving at all once they decided what position to hold. While I personally do think Tarkov is an inferior game to Hunt, I do believe that this part they have designed better than the Hunt team. I will show you a little example right here. I can sit in a corner, hold multiple angles at once, without an approaching enemy ever knowing where I am, while I personally can listen to their footsteps and adjusting my angle based on where I think they will be running into my sights from. This highly punishes the active player who is moving, and in my opinion it would go a long way if the stationary player would also give some audio cues if they are technically moving. Because like I said already, the active player, the moving player, kinda feels like they have a disadvantage here, and I think this is a main reason why stalemates are happening, because everybody knows if I move and my enemy doesn't, I'm feeding information towards them, but not getting any back. Also, this would make holding a certain angle a strategic decision and readjusting your angle as well. You can no longer hold the doorway and suddenly decide when they get close, oh actually I wanna hold the other side. Especially bushes, tall grass and similar foliage, making noise when moving through them would help a lot to make moving a more strategical decision when hiding and sitting inside bushes. Suddenly it is not an easy decision to hide inside the next bush, but something that has to be considered for its ups and downsides. My third idea to prevent stalemates are predetermined destructible walls, entrances on boss layers. Every layer would have some areas which can be destroyed. That could be a wall or part of a roof, for example. It would be clearly visible that it can be destroyed by making it stand out visually. It would not be the entire layer, just certain parts of it that are predetermined. The point of this mechanic would be to prevent stalemates. Everybody knows the scenarios in which the boss layer team refuses to peek a singular window, or even worse, barricaded themselves with a concertina bomb inside the layer to simply delay the fight. This mechanic would give the attacking team an option to get another angle into the layer, or the inside team another way to get out. To balance it a little bit, you would only be able to destroy those designated areas with dynamites or heavy melee attacks by a hammer or an axe, for example. This would not only help the attackers, but also means that if somebody chooses to open a wall or part of the roof, that the attacking team will have to get closer to the layer, which does give the defending team a chance to strike if they want to. I personally love the idea of being able to turn the boss layer into Swiss cheese if the banishing team allows me to do so, and then forcing a fight by opening up more angles and punishing overly passive gameplay while having to take a risk myself. This might also shift the consumable matter towards considering bringing dynamite sticks again. This was it for the video. Thank you for watching if you made it all the way to this point. And again, I would love to hear everyone's opinion on this topic. Positive and negative are equally welcome. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys next time.